Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Ted. I'm working as a team lead, primarily focusing on Microsoft Office 365 and helping customer onboard Microsoft Office 365. At the same time, I'm responsible for implementing and managing Microsoft Skype for Business, Microsoft Teams, as well as Microsoft Enterprise Mobility plus Security, and implementing and setting up Microsoft Survey Hub. Today, I would like to talk about Microsoft Security and Compliance Center. This program is brought to you by Microsoft Teams User Group Singapore. So what is Microsoft Security and Compliance Center? Microsoft Security and Compliance Center is a one-stop comprehensive portal to protect your data in Office 365. We use Microsoft Security and Compliance Center to manage compliances for all of your organization data across Office 365. You can manage your compliance across Office 365, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Skype for Business Online, etc. At the same time, Microsoft Office 365 takes security and compliance to the next level by helping you to control your data security and lowering your compliance cost as well as complexity. We also use Microsoft Security and Compliance Center to discover, identify, and reproduce relevant data for actionable insights, such as legal case. Microsoft Security and Compliance Center also help organizations to retain the data which is required by internal obligation and compliance, as well as to ensure that the data are permanently deleted when it is no longer required. When it comes to the data compliance, an organization is primarily looking for three different things, such as which are preserving vital data. Customer will have the legacy data which is spreading across their organization, such as SharePoint and as well as Exchange data. Microsoft provide and help organization to import the data into Microsoft Office 365 so that customer can preserve and maintain the data, retain the data easily and cost effectively. At the same time, when the data are residing in Microsoft Office 365, Microsoft Security and Compliance Center also provide you e-discovery feature, which allow organization to easily and immediately to discover relevant data when it is required. And not only that, but also to be able to monitor on your interest of data, such as what, let's say, for example, I would like to find out which documentation has been deleted by which user, so that you can also monitor the integrity of your data across Office 365. This is how Microsoft is helping organizations to meet their preserving the data, finding out relevant data, as well as monitoring the core interest of the data, core interest of the organization. Microsoft Security and Compliance Center also help you provide the e-discovery survey. E-discovery survey is a way to find out relevant data. So let's say, for example, you are having a legal case and you need to find out like tens of thousands of data. By having Microsoft e-discovery and advanced e-discovery service, Microsoft will significantly reduce the number of days and the number of people required to review the document. Previously, we may have to spend like months or weeks to be able to find out, to be able to scroll through like tens of thousands of documents. But in Microsoft e-discovery service, we can significantly reduce the number of relevant documents that require for this particular case, so that we are lowering the complexity and lowering the compliance cost to be able to find out relevant data. Not only that, but also Microsoft provide you a way to segregate the roles and permission to attend a case. Let's say, for example, you may have a team of like document reviewer, you may have a team of administrator. So by having a document reviewer only the permission, the right permission that they need to do their job, not to protect your data integrity and data intent. Microsoft Office 365 Security and Compliance Center provide you a very granular control of your data and security. When it comes to preserving the data, there are a few different features and methods that you can preserve your data. One is called retention policy. Retention policy is all about retaining the data required by your legal and regulatory requirements, such as, for example, Sarbanes-Oxley Act require a company to preserve a certain set of sensitive information for a number of years, at least, for example, 7 years. At the same time, to reduce the risk of holding very old data, or by having a risk of getting security breach by permanently deleting when the data is no longer required. Retention policy does in fact two things. One is to retain the data when it is no longer, or retain the data when it is required, and to permanently delete it when it is no longer required. So as I mentioned, retention is one of the methods to preserve data. Not only that, but also in Office 365 ecosystem, there are a few different methods to retain and preserve the data. One is called litigation hold. Litigation hold is to preserve and to retain your entire mailbox. Let's say, for example, in your mailbox, you will have like sent item, inbound, draft folder, spam folder. All the folder information and data are retained. To retain and to preserve, we use litigation hold. Litigation hold is another method to preserve and retain your data. And in litigation hold, there is another method called in-place hold. In-place hold is different from litigation hold in the way that in-place hold only retain and preserve that such query that you are interested in. Let's say instead of maintaining the whole mailbox, you would like to preserve and you would like to retain that any document and any document in any mailbox which has a particular keywords, such as I would like to preserve and maintain the document which has the security and social number, which has a tax return code, for example, instead of maintaining the whole mailbox, which is called in-place hold. At the same time, as I mentioned in previous slide, retention is also different from litigation hold and in-place hold in a way that retention policy copy an original data before a user make its changes. So retention policy doesn't maintain and preserve the whole entire mailbox or entire documentation site. Instead, it maintains only the original item before the user make its changes. So at the same time, as I mentioned previously, retention policy does two different things. One is to retain the data when it is required, and two, delete the data when it is no longer required. So how does a retention policy work? Retention policy is like assuming the retention policy I apply on mailbox. Retention policy you can apply on Exchange Online, you can apply on Microsoft Groups, you can apply on Microsoft Skype for Business, you can apply on Microsoft Teams. Now we are assuming that we are applying the retention policy on a particular mailbox. So I would like to explain to you how does it work when a retention policy is applying on a particular mailbox. Please look at the point number 1. When a user is trying to make a change in an email, such as he's trying to make a change in subject, he's trying to change the content of the message, he's trying to change the sender and recipient, date and time, and then the content of the body, message body, or in order. Before a user can make these changes, a retention policy copy an original data to a recovery item folder that you can see around here. That recovery item folder holds the original content before user commit a changes. And so that before user can make a changes. And when the retention policy reach reach expiring date, and then the data holding in the recovery item folder will be permanently deleted within 14 days. This recovery item folder is in fact residing right inside a user's primary mailbox. And so basically, the user primary mailbox has another hidden the placeholder where recovery item is held. Which is invisible to the user, and user cannot do anything about that. When we are talking about the retention policy, there are a few things that we have to consider. Retention policy require you to have Microsoft Exchange Online Plan 2. If you don't have it, you have to subscribe Microsoft the archive online archiving. And also, you can, when it's applying retention to mailbox, you can exclude certain set of information, such as you don't want to include the Microsoft Exchange voicemail. You can also exclude that. And when the mailbox is like this, as I mentioned, there are a few methods to preserve and to retain the data in Office 365 ecosystem and environment. Let's say, for example, if the mailbox is under litigation hold, even the retention policy reach to expiration date, the data cannot be deleted because it is still under litigation hold. So it also means that a mailbox or like a Microsoft Exchange Online mailbox or Microsoft site or SharePoint site or OneDrive Online can be applied by retention policy, as well as at the same time can be put on litigation hold. how does it Microsoft Teams is doing when it's come to retention policy and when it's come to compliance. As you can see in the picture, Microsoft Teams will directly send the file that shared during their one-to-one chat or during their team and channel chat to Microsoft SharePoint Online directly. But the contrast is that when it's come to one-to-one chat and one-to group chat or like channel chat, Microsoft Teams will first of all send to Azure Chat Service. That Azure Chat Service will process and then push it back to Microsoft Exchange Online mailbox, individual mailbox or group mailbox. So this is how Microsoft Teams is sending the data to different Microsoft Office 365 Exchange, Microsoft Office 365 the environment. So when the data arrive in when data arrived generated from Skype or Microsoft Teams arrive to SharePoint Online or Exchange Online, the data will be able to manage by Microsoft Security and Compliance Center. So now the data are inside Exchange Online and SharePoint Online and OneDrive. So now we have to preserve the data, we have to retain the data, we have to manage the data, we have to secure data through Microsoft Security and Compliance Center. This is how it works hand in hand. So now, once the data arrive and residing in Exchange Online, residing in SharePoint Online and OneDrive Online, we can use Security and Compliance Center to manage and to protect the data and to apply compliance to the data. So it is also important to note that Microsoft will retain and Microsoft will store chat data inside Microsoft Azure Chat Service. So in order to delete all the chat services across Office 365, you also have to use retention policy to delete the chat service completely from Microsoft, entire Microsoft ecosystem. So when the channel chat file are stored in SharePoint Online, so when you are chatting in Microsoft Teams, you are chatting in like team chat, all the chat file shared across in team channel will be stored at Microsoft Microsoft folder channel for Microsoft create a folder. Okay, sorry. When Microsoft chat file are stored in SharePoint Online, when the chat file are stored, Microsoft, when you create a team channel, when you create a channel in Microsoft Teams, that it also create a respected folder in Microsoft SharePoint Online. So all the channel, let's say for example, you are chatting in general channel and you share the file, then the file will be stored in general folder of SharePoint Online shared drive. So when you are doing the one-to-one chat, so what I'm trying to explain to you is that there are different places that Microsoft Teams store data that you share across. If you are sharing and then if you are uploading file in Microsoft channel, team channel, it will be stored in Microsoft SharePoint Online under shared document. Okay, so when you are doing the one-to-one chat in Microsoft Teams, it will be stored right inside your SharePoint or OneDrive account. So which is different from SharePoint. SharePoint, okay, in summary, SharePoint is for the team chat, and then also the one-to-one file, the file that you share will be stored in each individual user's OneDrive for Business. So it is under, and also it is under Microsoft Team Chat file. So when you go to your OneDrive Online, you go to File, and then you click on Microsoft Team Chat file. This is where the file that you store in one-to-one chat are stored there. So it is also important to note that when you are doing one-to-one chat, the file that you share with your peer will be stored in your the OneDrive for Business, but you only see what you share. You will not see what other people share to you in your OneDrive for Business folder, which is Microsoft Teams chat file folder. You see what you share to your peer. You will not see what peer shared it to you. What peer shared it to you will be only appear in his OneDrive for Business folder. Okay, so when you are what does it do when the Microsoft the SharePoint Online when a user trying to modify or delete a file that he shared in Microsoft Teams channel or one-to-one chat. So when you are trying to delete a file, or when you are in one-to-one chat, or when you are trying to delete a file in Teams channel, the deleted file will be stored under Microsoft Preservation Whole Library, which is right inside SharePoint SharePoint Teams site. which is, let's say when user is trying to delete a file, or when user is trying to modify a file, this file will be stored inside Microsoft Preservation Library hole inside SharePoint site. So, which is also assuming that user has a retention policy has been applied. So what does it mean is that when a retention policy is applied on OneDrive and SharePoint site, when a user is trying to delete or modify a file, the file will be copied over, the original content of the file will be copied over to preservation whole library before user can commit changes. This is to preserve the data integrity and data security. So how does the retention policy detect after a retention policy is reached? Because retention policy come with a certain number of users, so I can set this retention policy for this type of data for 2 years, 3 years. Let's say, for example, I have a retention policy which applied on Exchange Mailbox Online, and it has a retention policy of 2 years. When the retention policy reached to its expiration date in 2 years time, all the data will be permanently deleted. So now we look at point number 1. So point number 1 is talking about when a user, during the retention period, when user is trying to delete or modify an email or modify a site. Let's say, for example, like I have applied retention policy on. Remember, we can apply retention policy on Microsoft Mailbox. We can apply retention policy on Microsoft site, SharePoint site. We can apply retention policy on Microsoft Skype for Business. We can apply retention policy on Microsoft OneDrive. So now assume that this scenario, I apply retention policy on Microsoft Team site, Microsoft SharePoint Team site. So when a user is trying to delete or modify a file, as shown in point number 1, before user can commit changes, an original copy will be original data will be copied over, recoverable, or preservation whole library, as shown here. If the data is not modified, like let's say data is always intact, nobody is using this data, or this data is residing there for a while, residing there, nobody is making any changes on this data. In point number 2, this data will directly go to first stage recycle bin, because there are two stage of recycling. Let's say when you deleted a file in SharePoint or OneDrive, first of all, it will go to first stage recycling bin. From this recycling bin, you can permanently delete it to a second recycling bin. But when the retention policy applied, even you deleted the folder in the first recycling bin or second stage recycling bin, the data will be stay retained. So based on what happened when a retention policy reached its expiration date. So if the data is modified, as shown in number 1, or deleted, before he can delete a folder, the data will be stored in a preservation whole library. Then after this retention policy is reached, the data will be permanently deleted. And then as point number 2, if data is always not been modified and always nobody is using the data file, it will directly go to, when the policy reach expiration date, it will go to first stage recycle bin. If it has been patched manually by user, it will be permanently deleted after 90 days, or when the 90 days is up, the first stage the user is not deleting the file, and that the retention policy will delete the file permanently after 90 days later. So how about now? Previous slide, we are talking about the preservation, what happened when the retention policy reached to expiration date on Microsoft Teams site and OneDrive. How about the Microsoft Mailbox desk? So when a user deleted, what happened when a user delete a file or modify an email messages? So when email messages. So what happened, and when the data residing? So when the user is in a primary mailbox, there are 2 subtree inside user's primary mailbox. The first one is called interpersonal messaging, which one is visible to end user. Let's say, for example, I can see my inbox, I can see my sent item, I can see my deleted folder, but at the same time, there is another hidden subtree called non-IMP, interpersonal messaging platform, which is invisible to the user and end user can't do anything about it. So when an item has been modified or deleted, it will goes to npm subtree as shown in. It is under recoverable item folder, which is invisible to the user and end user cannot do anything about it. Let's say when end user deleted permanently from his her deleted item folder, in fact, it is if the mailbox has been applied on retention policy, it will in fact goes to deleted item folder right inside recoverable item folder, which is invisible to the user. For user, he may think that the item has been deleted permanently. In fact, it is not, because the retention policy has been applied on his mailbox. So it is likewise, if a mailbox has been put on litigation hold, all the email messages will be stored right inside the recoverable item subtree, right inside the recoverable litigation hold placeholder, right inside recoverable item subtree, inside is user primary mailbox. So what we have to understand is that inside, in fact, a user's mailbox has two subtree. One is visible to the user, one is invisible to the user. So when user deleted the item from his mailbox, in fact, if retention policy is applied, whichever item that he deleted will be in fact stored right inside recoverable item folder. Okay, but which is also right inside user primary mailbox. So when we're trying to see where my one-to-one chat and channel chat are stored, if I'm using Microsoft Teams and I would like to, the question we are trying to answer now is that where my chat message goes to. The message in fact go to under conversation history folder, right inside user's primary mailbox, which is also under interpersonal messaging subtree. So it is invisible to the user. So when user is when a team user is using like one-to-one chat or channel chat, that all the chat message will be stored under his primary mailbox, also invisible. But we have to use particular tool like Mappy2 in order to see this folder structure. You can see this folder structure right inside your Outlook client. You can't. So when my one-to-one chat and team chat are stored, in fact, your team chat are stored under conversation history folder and then under team chat. This is only visible when we use a particular tool to see it. So we go to Microsoft Security and Compliance Center to create the retention policy. When the first time we create retention policy, you will be asked, you want to create retention policy for entire organization covering all location. Let's say all location basically means all the Office 365, the online services such as Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Skype for Business. Or you want to define your own, you want to define specific locations. So I don't want to apply retention policy on, like let's say for example, like Skype for Business. I only want to apply retention policy on Microsoft the SharePoint Online. So you can also do that. When you are trying to the first time you are trying to create retention policy, you will have a chance to choose whether you would like to create. Whether you would like to create the first time you're trying to create a retention policy, you will be asked to see how long you want to retain it. So you can define 7 years, like 8 years, or like forever. So when the point is also when you're trying to retain the data, you will be asked like you want to retain data based on which condition. So I want to retain the data based on the first time it was created. The first time it was created basically means, let's say for example, I'm trying to retain a file or a content or a document for 7 years. In fact, if the file has been created like 6 years ago, so the next year the file will be deleted next year because it is 7 years. So the file has been created 6 years ago, and I put my retention policy for 7 years. So 1 year later, the file will be deleted. It is not that when I created the retention policy, it is not the case. What the case is that when you choose when it was created, it will follow the first time the document was created. Also, as you can see, when you are trying to apply retention policy for different locations, the location could be OneDrive account, Office 365 groups, and Skype for Business. So when you are trying to do applying retention policy for Skype for Business or for Skype for Business or for Microsoft Teams, you will see a different location. If you are in pure cloud tenant, you have a very granular control of which chat message that you would like to apply retention on. Let's say, for example, you have less interested in channel message, but you are more interested in one-to-one messages. So you can apply retention policy based on team channel message or team chat message. But you can see these two team channel message and team chat message only when you are in pure cloud environment. But if you are in hybrid environment, let's say you have integration with Microsoft Skype Business on-premise to Microsoft Skype Business online. So in this case, when you are trying to apply and create retention policy, you can only see Skype for Business. But regardless, so long as the user is using Microsoft Teams, you should be able to retain and preserve the data. But one thing to know is that the user mailbox must be Microsoft Exchange Online. Also, when you are creating the retention policy for Microsoft Skype for Business, or Microsoft Teams, it is required that you have to remember the first time we try to create the retention policy. It will ask whether we would like to create retention policy for entire organization. Entire organization means covering all the location, all the services, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and all that etc. But even though you choose to apply retention policy for the entire organization, it doesn't include Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, for now, there is a limitation that you have to create different different retention policy for Microsoft Teams. Let's say, for example, you create an organizational-wide retention policy, but at the same time, you have to manually create one more new retention policy just for Microsoft Teams. So basically, the whole organization team doesn't cover Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams require different retention policies. At the same time, you can also use advanced retention policy. So let's say, for example, I would like to apply retention policy based on certain particular keywords instead of entire organization or instead of the Microsoft Teams. Let's say, for example, I would like to apply retention policy based on keywords. Let's say I would like to know that if there is a document or if there is a message or if there is a instant messaging conversation which has these particular keyword, let's say, for example, like the credit card number, like passport number, like social security number. When the document messages contain this number, I would like to apply retention policy. Otherwise, I would not apply retention policy. You can do that. But the thing is that this advanced security is meant for now is only for Exchange Online, SharePoint site, and OneDrive. But Microsoft Teams currently doesn't support this advanced retention policy. That's what you also have to take note. But what I would like to show you is that Microsoft provides you very advanced and very comprehensive retention type of policy. You can do it very granular and very detailed and very specific and targeted retention policies that you can apply. And not only that, but also sometimes you may want to use the industry industry regulation instead of like defining for your own. Let's say, for example, in US, we have personally identifiable information data. So you can also use industrial regulated industrial leading industry predefined retention policy for certain set of data. Let's say, for example, if you choose to use like US personal identifiable information data, it will protect Microsoft, like it will protect the data and retain the data for any document and any document and HA message that has like taxpayer identification number, and also US social security number, as well as US or UK passport number. So you can also use, what I'm trying to do is you can also use specific words to apply retention policy on Microsoft locations, such as like Skype for Business, like Microsoft Exchange Online, as well as you can also use preset industrially regulated the retention policy on Microsoft Office 365 services, such as Exchange, Office 365, and Skype for Business, Microsoft Teams. So when is Microsoft Security and Compliance Center also provide you a way to label the retention policy. Let's say, for example, I have a different set of retention policy. I have 2-year retention policy for certain group of users. I have 3-year retention for certain set of information. I have 5-year retention policy for certain type of sensitive information. So I have different category of retention policy. So I can create label so that when users are trying to open their Outlook or their mailbox or their SharePoint online, they can apply certain set of retention policy by themselves. Then that is what I'm giving the user for flexibility and manual applying of retention policy by user themselves. But at the same time, certain type of information, certain type of sensitive information, and it requires that I have to enforce it from the top, enforce it and automatically applying it. So I'm not getting any user any flexibility to apply the data by themselves, but I'm applying it on all behalf based on our internal obligation and compliance requirement. So what I'm trying to say is that in Microsoft Office Security and Compliance Center also provide you a way to manually apply the retention policy, or you can automatically apply it for organizational wide. After you have created a retention policy, after you have applied a retention policy, this is now the time to do content search. Because once the content, like such as Microsoft Skype for Business Online, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Exchange Online, Microsoft Group Mailbox, you apply retention policy on all this data. Now what you would like to do is that I would like to find out, I would like to identify, I would like to quickly locate the document and the data that I have been looking for my particular requirement or legal requirements, such as, for example, recently a user deleted a file, and then everyone is reporting that this file is no longer available. So you would like to find out where who deleted the file and then where the file is. So now, because you have applied retention policy on particular number of user, particular type of particular group of user, or specific user, or entire organization, so that now you can search the content that require you to reproduce. So in this case, Microsoft Security and Compliance Center also provide you a functionality called content search. Content search is a very powerful and then very comprehensive, as well as able to find out and produce and able to help you to locate the relevant data in a very quick and immediate manner. So you can use Microsoft Content Search to look for Microsoft Exchange Online messages, a public folder, at the same time SharePoint Online and OneDrive for business site, and also Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Office 365 groups. So you use Microsoft Content Search to look for the information and relevant document that you are looking for. At the same time, please also remember that in order to use Content Search, a user or administrator must have e-discovery role assigned. So now I'm trying to find out the conversation. So let's say, for example, I apply retention policy on all user or a certain number of user. Now I apply so that I can use content search to locate the information that I'm looking for. I use the content search to locate particular keywords or particular file type or particular the condition. Let's say, for example, I would like to find out a particular keyword called financial information. So I can use Microsoft Content Search to search for this particular keyword. So in this case, I search a keyword called financial information in Content Search, so that I can quickly locate whoever talking about this Content Search will be populated in my search. So I can also search for deleted messages, deleted documents, and deleted content. Let's say, for example, a user deleted a file, a user deleted a conversation, one-to-one chat, or like in a channel chat. So I can also locate it. Even that the user has been deleted, the content, the IM conversation, because I have applied retention policies. So Microsoft Content Search is very powerful and very extensive to be able to locate the data and content, so long as the content retention policy has been applied or litigation hold has been applied. So at the same time, it is also very important to take note is that Microsoft Content Search and retention policy is only applicable to users who have Microsoft Exchange Online mailbox. Let's say, for example, I have in my channel message in my channel, I have a guest user who is using like Gmail or like Yahoo Mail, but those conversation is used. This conversation will not be searchable or will not be located by content search, or retention policy. So basically means retention policy doesn't apply to a guest user or who doesn't have Exchange Mailbox, Exchange Online Mailbox. Let's say, for example, I have a hybrid environment. I am doing the team and group chat, and I have some users are Exchange Online, but some users are Exchange on premise. So when they are doing the IM conversation, I can only search and look for the conversation is this generated and produced, generated from and typed by people who have Exchange Online. So when you are trying to have conversation with non-Exchange Online mailbox, I will not be Microsoft retention policy is not able to locate and even is not able to get the message from non-Exchange Mailbox user. So basically means when you are chatting with, like when you are in your channel, when you are team channel, you are trying to you are chatting with a guest user whose mailbox is in Gmail or Yahoo Mail. So when you are trying to search a particular keyword or like particular information from that user, you may not be able to find it and you may not be able to locate it. So it is just to take note. Also, when as I mentioned before, when users are trying to modify or delete a file in Microsoft Skype for Business site and Microsoft OneDrive site or Microsoft OneDrive account, it will be stored in preservation hold library. Preservation hold library is both for Microsoft SharePoint Online site and Microsoft Skype for Business account, but both names are the same, but the paths are different. If you notice that, even though the modified and deleted files are stored in reservation hold library, respectively for SharePoint Online and Skype or OneDrive for Online, but their path is different. So when you are trying to find a file which it has been copied over to preservation hold library for that the file has been deleted from Microsoft SharePoint Microsoft SharePoint site, it will be stored under your organization name, SharePoint.com site. But when you are trying to locate a file which has been deleted from OneDrive, which also stored in Microsoft Preservation Hold Library, but the path is your organization name, not the individual, personal, the path, but which also stored in Preservation Hold Library. So what I'm trying to say is that both file modified and deleted are stored in preservation hold library, but they are the same name. But when it's come to, if it is deleted from SharePoint site, it will be stored on SharePoint site preservation hold library. If it is deleted from OneDrive, it will be stored on OneDrive preservation hold library. So now it is the time for demonstration. I would like to switch my camera back to my desktop so that you can see the demonstration that I'm trying to do now. So first of all, I will try to find out all the content, and after that, I follow by the specific keywords that I'm looking for, and I will be looking for like document type. At the same time, I will be doing audit search, as well as at the same time, I will be doing like someone deleted the message yet. I would like to recover it. I would like to retrieve the message that has been deleted by the user. So I will be doing a few demonstrations when it's come to Microsoft Security and Compliance Center and trying to see how it's like using Microsoft Search, using Microsoft Audit Log, and all that. So I'm going to Microsoft Security and Compliance Center. So how you come is you log into Microsoft Office 365 portal and then go to the admin page, go to Security and Compliance Center. What I'm trying to do now is that I'm trying to create a retention policy. In fact, I've already created a retention policy, because creating a retention policy takes at least 1 day, or sometimes it is a little bit less than 1 day. So I already created a retention policy here. Retention policy is in fact under data governance category. So we go to retention policy. Then I would like to show you the retention policy I have already created, and which the locations are covered inside this particular retention policy. So the location that I apply is like all the user. Applying is only 2 locations, because my interest now for this demonstration is only for Microsoft Teams Chat, Channel Chat, and Microsoft Teams Chat. So I apply retention policy for Microsoft Teams Channel Chat messages, then Microsoft Teams one-to-one chat messages, but it's also for everyone. By default, it is covered for every single one in my organization. So what I'm trying what does this retention policy do is that I'm trying to retain and preserve all the Teams channel messages for all the user, and I'm trying this retention policy retain and preserve all the one-to-one chat between all the user inside my entire organization. Or if you don't want to apply this retention policy for all users, which is by default, you can also choose a particular user to apply retention policy on. Let's say, for example, I have a specific interest of user. Let's say I would like to apply this policy for only like the 2 user, 3 user. You can also do that. So in this case, you can also choose the team that you want to apply, or the user that you want to apply. Let's say, for example, I would like to do applying the one-to-one chat for a certain number of users. You can include which is default is all. You can choose a certain number of users instead of choosing all the user. So I want to apply this policy on only user 1 and user 2. You can do that as well. By default, is applying to all. So I leave it the default. So because I would like to maintain and preserve and retain all the messages for all the users across my organization. So this is what my organization is all about. And also, for my retention policy, I want to retain all the data for 3 years. So at the same time, do you want to delete it? So at the same time, I didn't. You can also delete after the 3 year has been reached. Let's say, for example, I apply this retention policy for Microsoft Teams for all users in my organization, but I'm not deleting the data after the retention policy is reached. Let's say 3 years later, so 2021. So it will still be maintained and will be resided and stay in Microsoft Office 365 data center. But at the same time, what I can do is I can also see that when this reach for this particular years, I can also delete it. So retain or delete connection on when it was created. So when it was created, basically means that I retain the data. I retain the data on when it has been deleted. So I retain the data on when it was created. So for example, like the chat message has been started like 1 month ago, or like 2 months ago, and then I retain starting from that particular date. The first time the chat has been typed, the first time the content has been shared and the file has been shared. So when it's come to Microsoft Teams, it's also you can also create additional retention policy, for example, like organization 2, and then you can say retention policy. And also you can also choose like how many years you want to apply this retention policy for. You want to apply to 7 years, and you want to apply this policy for when the document was created, or you want to delete it after 7 years. Yes, you want to delete the data for after 7 years. Or you want to use the specific location. So now you define how long do you want to retain particular document, or how long do you want to retain the data. So which data you want to apply this policy for? So you want to apply this retention policy on, you can apply for by default or apply. So you can apply this retention policy for Microsoft Exchange Mailbox, Microsoft SharePoint on-site, Microsoft OneDrive account, or Skype for Business, Office 365 group. So this is how you create retention policy. And then this is how you want to define your retention period and where do you and which data that you want to apply the retention policy on. In this case, you can choose for Exchange Mail, SharePoint site, and OneDrive account or Office 365 group. Then you click next, and then after that you have created this policy. So in this case, I already created one retention policy called Microsoft Team Data. So I'm very much interested in what is happening, and I also would like to retain and preserve the data for Microsoft Team. In my policy, like what I reviewed just now, is applying on Microsoft channel message for all users and Microsoft one-to-one team message for all users. So let us see what happened. So now I launched my Skype for Business client, Microsoft Team client, and I have chatted with a few users. In general, so I have chatted with a few users, and then I have shared the particular file. I have shared the, let's say for example, hi all. So what I'm trying to do is that I would like to locate all the conversation and all the document that has been shared from this particular channel. I'm typing some like very sensitive keywords, such as like my confidential data, such as like social security number. So to make my point more prominent. So I have like this kind of conversation going on my across my teams, and also I chat it with like different number of people. So let's say for example, I trying to want to this my channel chat is like the channel chat is called my security and compliance team. Another team I have different channels. So I'm having like the so-called like channel chat message with a few different channel message. In this channel there are many users, right? So at the same time I will be doing one-to-one chat with my other user. So I say, hi, this is a social security number. Also, in one-to-one chat, I share him a few different set of files, as well as I type in very sensitive information like social security number, like compliance security. So at the same time, after I type something, okay, let's say for security number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After I use the social security number, I'm trying to delete it. I'm trying to delete it. Social security number. The social security number has been deleted. All right. So security number has been deleted. So now I would like to, so this as an administrator at an organization, you may not know whether the user has been deleted a particular file or particular chat messages, but since you have applied retention policy on this Microsoft Teams one-to-one chat and Team channel chat, you should be able to recover it. You should be able to see the message. So I type social security number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but at the same time, after I deliver my message to my peer, I immediately deleted it. Okay, so we would like to recover this kind of information. So now, in order to search the content that we have been looking for, then we have to go to Microsoft Security and Compliance Center, and then go for Search Investigate. So you go for content search. Just now, username is called Ted, right? Ted is chatting with user 1. So you would like to know, and you would like to find out what Ted has been doing, and then you would like to find out Ted conversation and iMessage and file. So you click on new search. So what I know is that Ted is doing something is something is not right. He is like deleting messages, and he is like deleting the file. You would like to find out this for this particular user. So I'm going to search on his mailbox. So not only the mailbox that he's member of, because remember the first time we created Microsoft Teams, it also create a group mailbox. So in this case, Microsoft is under the there is a member of Microsoft team called social security and compliance team. So Ted is a member. So I would like to know, and I would like to retrieve back all the information and message that Ted has been typing, as well as the one-to-one chat that he has been having with other different users. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to find out and to retrieve the message that Ted has been typing. And so what I have to do is that I will have to choose, and then also search custom location. So I would like to choose for specific mailbox. So I would like to search on the security and compliance team, because once we create a team, the mailbox will be created. So I search on him, as well as I search on his individual mailbox. So the number one is his team overall channel messages that I can see about Ted. At the same time, the individual message that he has been typing. So at the same time, if I'm interested in, because I can do some granular search on particular user or particular team group. All right, so that is a member of this security and compliance team group, as well as there is an individual user. So I would like to know that the message that has been typing, or any message that he has been typing. So I can do this overall search, like complete the search, or I can narrow down the keywords, or like the particular confidential information that I suspect that he has been typing or distributing. So maybe I could even narrow down, and I could even encircle the particular chat message that he has been typing. That's in this case, like social security number. So this is to narrow down my search. If you do not have like particular search idea in your mind, or you can just use don't use the keyword search, you can search the entire mailbox without defining any particular keywords. So it has been done. So if I can see the result, the last one is the date and time that the search has been run, and also it found 3 items. So 1 index item and then 2 mailboxes. All right. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find any message that has been typing, call any message that has like so-called the query called security number. Okay, so I can review. So just now you can see that the Ted deleted this particular message called security number 12345 from his team client. You can see that he deleted it. Right? So if he deleted it, but I can use, since I have applied on social retention policy, I can retrieve back the message that he has typed and deleted it. All right, so we can see the type of the conversation, the type of the content is like the type of the data is instant messaging and conversation. The sender who sent this message is sent by Ted, and then who is modified, and this particular date and time is modified. So you can see that. So basically means that I can have a complete control over and retain the data, even though the data has been deleted by the user. This is how Microsoft is helping organizations meet the regulatory and compliance requirement. So in fact, this message has been deleted by the user. So in fact, I do not have any particular the message that he has been typing, but just that I suspect that I would like to do some search on him, just in a way that I just for general inquiry. So I remove this one. So it means that anything that that has been typing, anything that has been type in this particular IM conversation, be it one-to-one or be it group, I would like to find it out. Then the data should be more, because then you are very general. You are not narrowing down the specific keyword or specific file type. So that will take some time, and then it will retrieve a lot of messages that since day one Tab had typed. So then now you can see that the number of items has been found and returned by Microsoft Content Search is a lot, 455 items. All right, so you can also see two mailbox there, because there is a member of particular team called security and compliance. So I use also team mailbox, group mailbox, in fact, and also his individual mailbox. So I can see Ted, IM message type, and then also type is IM. Then sender is Ted, and then he is modified on this particular day. So I can even see that. At the same time, I can also download the original items of the text message. It is in Microsoft EML email format file. I can open it. So this means that just now I didn't define any keywords or any specific to narrow down my search. I search everything about Ted and then his identity, his instant messaging. So now I can